now to talk about this very important topic. Now, yesterday we started that conversation, particularly on the deployment of some military engineers to Jamaica and as well deployment to Benin to at least help curb the coup that happened in Benin, or the near coup, as some people describe it. And joining us this morning, we as well talk about the U.S. restriction on visa to some other countries, or entry to the country in some other countries as well. Dr. Yaw Mireku is Research Fellow at the National College of Defense and speaks international language quite fluently. Thank you so much for joining us in studio. The last time we had a conversation was via Zoom.
Yes.
I didn't like the network. I like that you're in studio. I hope you're well. How was the year ending for you?
Well, a lot of expectations. A few of them have come to pass. We are only hoping for, the best years ahead of us.
I totally agree with you. When you heard about that engineer or military engineer deployment to Jamaica, what's that first thing that came to mind?
Well, let me say good morning to you and to you too, and to all the dignified listeners and watchers of Joy AM News. And in the spirit of the season, I wish everybody watching and listening the best compliment, of the season. I must say that it's really a proud moment to be a Ghanaian. This is not a new development for me as an international relations expert. Ghana has a track record of being what you call a norm entrepreneur, and as small as we are, we've always, punched, above our weight. We've demonstrated what we call power without, the atomic bomb. And it's because we have a track record of doing this. I could take you down to memory lane, probably start from, say, former President J.J. Rawlings of blessed memory. This is not the first time Ghana has committed to international solidarity. We would realize that in the natural disaster that occurred in Japan, as small state as we are, Ghana made some resources available to a country, that is considered as, a developed country at that time. And it didn't only stop with former President J.J. Rawlings. President Kufuor did same. Professor Matamels of blessed memory did same. The immediate past president, President Akufo-Addo, did same, with a mass slide, in Sierra Leone, committed an amount to the tune of $1 million, into helping, an African neighbor. But if you go down to memory lane, you'd realize that, look, Nkrumah set the tone for this kind of international solidarity. The more reason why, one of the reasons why he was overthrown was that he had committed himself to solving, a global crisis and was on his way to, Vietnam. That's what happened to him way back home. And so these are things that...
So his issue wasn't about just the continental bloc, but
of course. But once again, in the interest of global solidarity,
okay.
And so, he committed an amount to the tune of $10 million to Guinea, in the wake of that country's severance of ties with France. Look, Nkrumah committed proceeds from Cocoa Marketing Board, £400,000 annually to freedom fighters, training them using the national, shipping, line to bring them freely here, train them, deploy them back to fight against colonialism and empire. Look, prominent leaders that are revered on the continent talk about Walter Sisulu, Joshua Nkomo, Hodu Roberto of the National Front for the Liberation of Angola. So many of them, Patrice Lumumba, Robert Mugabe, right?
Yeah.
All these people were here at some point to benefit from Ghana's generosity when it came to fighting against colonialism. The University of Education Winneba used to be the Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute that were deploying ideological training to freedom fighters to go back. Look, we saw the significant role Ghana played in fighting against apartheid, but for Nkrumah and other African leaders, apartheid would have enjoyed a much more comfortable, environment than it did back in the day. So Ghana has a track record, in terms of Pan-African solidarity, international solidarity, in terms of being the beacon of, say, anti-colonial struggle and liberation movement. And in the post-Cold War international system, Ghana has become a beacon of democracy. In fact, it's one of the most respected countries when it comes to peacekeeping, when it comes to ensuring that global conflicts are resolved through, peacekeeping. So, there's a track record.
What would you say to many who argue that, well, for Nkrumah, he inherited a host of resources. He had money sitting down. So it was okay if he did all of those. However, for us as a country now, we don't have the luxury of doing that. Do you agree to what the people that say that Nkrumah did all the things that he did because he had money sitting down? Do you agree, first of all?
Well, it depends on how you're looking at it. And I'll look at it from two angles. Nkrumah had resources. And of course, if you look at the Apalu Commission, there's an inquiry that was set to look into Nkrumah's financial dealings and realized that he set up accounts in Ghana and in Switzerland. But those funds were committed basically for fighting for independence on the continent, liberation movement. So I know these resources were available. But the point is that international politics has taken a different turn. You know, what happened was 60, 70 years ago. International politics has taken a different turn. And I'm coming to your question. What you have to look at is US, the global north, US, Europe, Japan. All these countries are bedeviled with significant domestic problems on their own. But they understand the importance of being out there in terms of international politics. And so regardless of the fact that they have to take care of their homes, they make sure that they are out there, you know, demonstrating, you know, the soft power or their influence, because it gives them a table in international politics. It makes them relevant in international politics. So Ghana may have little resources, but there's a track record that we've established, you know, for ourselves. And I don't think it means that the government is renegating or the government is not doing what it has to do domestically. But look, international politics has grown in size and in scope that small states must find a way to be relevant. And it gives me, like I keep saying that, I'm very proud as a Ghanaian now to see that we have limited resources, but we are sharing in those resources, not doing it in any mammoth or grandiose way, but the little that we can. And look at the country that we are picking. It's a political statement you are making. It is global South affair. It is South-South affair.
What in plain language and in simple language, how would you say that? What's the kind of language what kind of language are we speaking particularly? And I ask this because you say that we've started a certain, years ago, we're doing this already. It's not new. That's for a country. We're extending a certain helping hand to a country that needs it. But today, are we still doing it with the object that existed? As you say, international politics has changed so much, or we're doing it with a language that you're yet to tell us?
I think it's both. Okay. I think it is because we have a track record of international solidarity, especially with black people, especially in the name of Pan-African ethos, you know, Pan-African solidarity. And look at, I'll come to the specific countries. Look at Cuba, look at Jamaica. These are the epicenters of Pan-African solidarity. In fact, if you are looking at the vectors of Pan-Africanism, it has usually been Africa, the Caribbean, North America, and to some significant extent, maybe Europe. But look at the people from the Caribbean that really engineered the Pan-African movement. George Padmore, at one time from the Caribbean, was the director of African Affairs, the African Bureau of African Affairs. A lot of them passed through. What W.E.B. Du Bois, even though he's from North America, has a Caribbean background, that was here. He died here, you know, in the country. Look, there's a significant number of them, you know, that has that relationship. And we know, if you are looking at the places where slaves were sent to, the places of disembarkation, the Caribbean is a direct representation of the African, you know, diaspora. We understand that the largest African diaspora is in Brazil, but the Caribbean is one of the largest spaces for our brothers or our brethren or our siblings. And so it is in the name of the Pan-African ethos, international solidarity. But for me, if I'm wearing my international relations lens, it gives political relevance and global presence to Ghana. You know,
global or just the sub-region?
It's not a sub-region. Of course, the Caribbean is not part of the African sub-region. Yeah.
But for us, are we doing it genuinely because we think we can have a place globally? Although we're doing it, extending it to the Caribbeans, we're hoping to gain power in the sub-region. So
like I said, it's both for the Pan-African solidarity, that international solidarity that Ghana has already been known for. And I can cite examples. Okay. Ghana was part of the original founders of the non-aligned movement. At that time, it was Kwame Nkrumah, it was Josip Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, it was India, Jawaharlal Nehru. Ghana was part of, we have always been a small state, but we have always had that diplomatic sophistication, that diplomatic acuity that gives us, you know, presence. You know, and so we always try to demonstrate, and we have a track record for that. Since the first time Ghana deployed its, you know, peacekeeping force in Congo, we have been able to maintain that kind of relevance, up to now. And so I think that if you ask me, it is because of that track record of Pan-African ethos, international solidarity. But as an international relations expert, it is giving Ghana some dignity. We are not always going cap in hand begging, but we are always able to share the little resources that we have. And it's very, very important. Sometimes these things, you can't put monetary value to it. But I tell you, the diplomatic relevance that it brings to Ghana. I have been out there in so many places, and when people realize you're Ghanaian, at least they know that you are from Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana.
Interesting.
And it's a pride moment. I was in India recently, and you could see when we tell people you are from Ghana, as far as it's been so many decades ago, they're able to refer how relevant Ghana is in diplomatic presence.
Kojo, you can come in anytime, but the deployment to Jamaica particularly, these are military engineers. We can put a value to it as well. But if it wasn't the military deployment and it was just monetary or maybe some kind of relief that went to Sudan, like what the president did, would the impact be the same? So
I think it would. Mind you, Ghana had already sent 40 metric tons of cocoa powder to Palestine in solidarity with the Gaza situation.
Yeah.
So we had done that with the Palestine. And that was one of the the proud moments for me as a Ghanaian. We had done the same, not only the Caribbean, we had done the same for Sudan. So even on the continent, it is not that we are trying to move outside the continent, but we are doing it within the continent too. We did it with Sudan. The point is that the call to deploy the 48th Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces it was not something we pushed on the Jamaicans. Their Prime Minister placed a direct call to Ghana asking for help. Now in diplomatic circles, when somebody is down to earth to the extent that they have to beg you to help them, look, you must be very inhumane.
But why Ghana though?
Well, there is a track record, like I said, that Pan-African solidarity.
Yeah.
Marcus Garvey, who Nkrumah took so much pride from in terms of the philosophy of his Pan-African ideals, came from Jamaica.
Right.
You understand? As for that connection, that Afro-Caribbean solidarity.
It's not strange.
It's not strange.
Ghana.
And look at the number of diplomatic ties, diplomatic engagement that we are conducting now. So many visa waivers that we have under this NDC administration. I think 11 of them are coming from the Caribbean, and that is kudos to the government. These are the kind of engagements we need to be having. So that arrangement, when somebody places a direct call to you that, look, almost 40 people in our country are dead because of Hurricane Melissa. We've lost resources in billions of dollars. Could you please? And this is when the military is deployed not to destroy but to build. They are not troops carrying arms to go and fight.
One strand of the debate yesterday would be that the minority in Parliament says that, well, not straightforward, but they seem to suggest that you can't, as a country or as a government, you cannot just take such a decision without consulting the minority. Many say that this does not fall under the Article 75 requirement. Many also say that the president has executive powers and executive authority and can really just allow this to pass. I see sitting right in the middle of it. Depends on where you want to push it.
Right.
Where would you put it?
So I'll sit in the middle as well, but I'll take a position.
Okay.
So in the first instance, let's go to precedence. When President Rawlings, for instance, deployed that resources to Japan, when Professor Tamils deployed $3 million to Haiti, when President Akufo-Addo deployed $1 million to Sierra Leone,
yeah.
I just want to appreciate whether there was that parliamentary debate, right, to assist a sister country, or that this has become more conspicuous because there's a deployment of the military. But if the deployment of the military, my understanding is that, and this is my understanding, unless it is a combat force, right, unless you are really getting involved, right, in a combat situation, then of course you need to seek parliamentary approval because it's a war situation.
Even though he's the commander-in-chief?
Yes, of course. I mean, if you are committing the countries, because nobody knows. Usually you go to wars with a plan and it's very hard to exit. And so you don't know how long you get committed. So it's very important that you seek parliamentary approval. In this situation, I'm not so sure. And so here I would be careful. I'm not so sure whether there is a constitutional requirement or it is just a courtesy right, for you to inform the parliament that this is the position you want to take as a government. But as far as I know, it's a courtesy call. There is no, it's not a combat force. Like I said, it's when the military is deployed to build, but not destroyed.
Okay.
So there's a precedence, there's a precedent that sometimes these things have done without, I don't know whether the same concerns were raised when the government sent 40 metric tons of cocoa products to Palestine.
Or even the deployment of relief items to Sudan.
Exactly, to Sudan. So I think what this is coming up because of the military.
It will be a good time to ask about the president himself, of course, because the relationships existed, country to country, what Nkrumah has done, track record and all of that.
Even before, the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee says, quote, however, the due process of consulting Parliament was not followed to allow us interrogate modalities, the framework, the cost to the state, and how long these decisions will persist. Does that make it seem that it was mandatory for them to seek parliamentary?
So, like I said, usually in a war situation, and it happened even in the US, you cannot, that is why people are saying that this attack on Venezuelan vessels, it seems to be a humanitarian case, but it's an armed conflict in some case. So Trump must seek parliamentary approval. In the particular case of Ghana's deployment of forces to Jamaica, once again, we do not know how long these things are going to last, especially if it were a war situation. And if it meant committing Ghana's resources to these situations for a longer period of time, then of course you needed some kind of parliamentary approval. But once again, I'm not so sure whether due processes still need to be followed. If it is not a combat force, but it's basically an engineering corps made up of masons and carpenters and technicians.
Which means that, Kojo, what the ranking member is saying we can push it to the fore only when we arrive at the decision being something that must be rectified.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about modalities, we can talk about...
That's why, based on that, I was trying to... Maybe a parliamentary or a governance person could answer the question of whether or not it's mandatory that the president or the government needs to go to parliament on some of these things.
That's if the foreign minister tells us that it is an agreement.
Okay.
If it falls under what Article 75 would be. Yeah, something. We must fine-tune, put it under a certain agreement before that. But what does it mean for the president himself? Granted, of course, Ghana, other relations. It's the country first, then the president. Because, of course, the John Mahama is not president forever. He wasn't president in 2024. But for him, what do you think this decision means to him?
I think. Look, I've always said this,
and I'm sure you know why I'm asking, because of the AU chairmanship.
Right, I'm coming to that. That's a very. It's interesting that you should mention that. I think that this is a political coincidence. It's not like he planned it before he came to power, but things are happening, and as much as it gives Ghana's global presence, because we are punching above our weight, it also puts Ghana and him in a positive limelight. It is not for any reason why the ECOWAS will unanimously decide that the only candidate they are presenting, right, as the president of the African Union or the African Union Commission president should be Ghana, uncontested. Yeah. It is because President Mahama has demonstrated some leadership capabilities, whether you like it or not, in the few months that he's been in power, and that is a feather, in his cap. I mean, there are a number of things that I can say that makes me proud to be a Ghanaian now, especially with the recent issue with Israel. This is diplomacy with dignity. Yeah. And sometimes I want to put this across. In international politics, we should not assume, or the principle is that states do not avoid conflict by demonstrating weakness, but by making the cost, the overly impossible cost of conflict bearable, known. So being weak doesn't mean that you will not go, it's not the way to avoid conflict. But the fact that you are able to demonstrate that the cost of conflict is expensive is what deters others and gives you dignity and brings you to the table. Right. So when you think that by being meek, international politics is changing. Political correctness is not becoming as popular as it used to be. Now states are demonstrating their will on international platforms. Okay. Diplomatic niceties are there as a diplomat, but political correctness is not so much popular in international politics. Political correctness. So when things happen, you must speak your mind. Okay. And it does not mean that you are rupturing relationship with state, but when you demonstrate to them that you won't take any hogwash, that you respect the dignity of your people. Look, when they are dealing with you, they will be careful, they will be courteous.
If you were here yesterday, you hear the debate or the other theory of why the president allowed Tuare to be at his inauguration, whether that would fall in line with what you're saying. But because of time, let's move to the U.S. expanding its travel ban from 19 to 39. Some of the countries, a tall list of them. But any of the countries in there that surprises you or does not surprise you?
Well, I'll go to Syria, but I'll come to Nigeria. Let me start with you.
Okay.
Well, Syria's president seems to be having a very beautiful relationship with Trump. The guy was invited over to the Oval Office, only for Syria to be placed on I think the full ban of U.S.'s visas.
If you take the relationship of the country itself, if you take a microscopic look at it and where it's falling, would you be surprised?
No, I'm not surprised.
Okay.
The country itself doesn't surprise me because it's not a very stable place to be. At the moment, and if you look at the caveat that the Trump administration uses to impose these visa restrictions, some of them have been that some of these countries are terrorist cells. They harbor terrorist cells. They're unable to regulate security in their country, and so they're exporting these terrorist cells into the U.S. Some of them have been visa overstays. That is where I'll come to Nigeria. Some of them have been a lack of serious security checks or features on passport from certain countries. So it allows criminal foreign element to access these passports, and because they know they are coming from credible countries, they have easy access to the US. And that is why I like what the Foreign Ministry of Ghana is doing, trying to make the possession of Ghana's passport a very expensive document in terms of the security feature, not just the price.
Okay.
But the fact that it becomes very difficult because look, Ghana is a very dignified country, and so if you hold a Ghanaian passport, it is not a US passport in terms of the global dominance, but at least we have kept to our diplomatic and democratic ethos, and so it is pleasing to be a Ghanaian.
Some months ago, you predicted that Ghana won't be on this list.
Yes, and
we're here today.
No, we are not on the list.
I mean, we're here today, and we are not on the list.
Yes.
This prediction is apt. There's no dent on the prediction.
Right.
And so and the political decisions that you think that a foreign minister or country to country were doing.
Right.
Any further predictions, or will you reiterate how we're not on that list?
Well, I think I'm happy to say that most of the predictions that I've made here have really come to pass.
They have, yeah.
I couldn't stress that enough.
Yes.
I think that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I don't know whether they listen when I talk, but I've said that the most important thing is to show working. You would want to engage in the public diplomacy, but do the necessary backdoor, the quiet diplomacy that gets really the job done. And when people were saying that, Ghana was taking in deportees from US and we're doing it for nothing, and that Ghana is subservient to US's dictate, I was quiet now saying that, look, something has got to give. I don't think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is very meek and so insensitive, and that we will take in deportees. I mean, it comes at a cost. But we're also pursuing our national interest. No two ways about that.
You'd rather go to the US than you'd rather have access to go to the US than say they shouldn't bring the deportees to Ghana.
Well, that is also another
1.3 million young people don't have jobs in Ghana.
Right.
No.
I mean, there's a lot to gain.
Okay.
In diplomatic circles, in commercial circles, there's a lot to gain, and that's the fact.
Yeah.
There's a lot to gain by having commercial. It is true. International economic relation is growing in size and scope to the extent that U.S. cannot hold the world in ransom. Yeah. But it's also important to realize that there is China, of course. There's no two ways. There is China, there is India, there is Turkey. All these countries are seeking to counterbalance U.S.'s influence on the continent. And so if you're a tactful leader, you are able to exploit, if you do in the days of the Cold War, both sides of the Iron Curtains. But the point is that we still need these countries. And this is, to me, should be Ghana's foreign policy. Ghana's foreign policy is now what you call strategic hedging.
Right.
Positive neutrality.
Let's discuss the foreign policy after the Bronya. Okay.
Right. That's fine. That's fine.
No, we'll discuss it during Bronya, don't worry.
Okay. You will discuss it during Bronya. So we'll enter the next year with firm decisions. Right.
Yeah.